All right, let's get this show on the road. Welcome back, everybody, to the eHunter podcast. Got another fun podcast for you guys today. Hope you guys are enjoying these podcasts. We're trying to be helpful, share some tips and tricks with you guys, resources, be that ultimate resource that you guys can use to help you in your hunting adventures. And if you guys ever have questions, don't be afraid to reach out. But before we get into the podcast, I guess I better first introduce my co-host, Seth. How you doing tonight, man?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, man. Sorry we've been a little bit on a hiatus here with podcasts.
It's been busy.
It has, yeah. You know, Seth and I work other full-time jobs, and so sometimes those get in the way of the fun stuff that we want to do, which includes podcasts. But you know, we're trying to get as much out as we can for you guys. As always, check out the website. We got a lot of stuff going up on there each and every day. New articles about news or other kind of resources. So that's ehunter.com, EHUNTR.com. Check it out. Also, before we get going, we need to thank our sponsors. First and foremost is Vortex Optics. Vortex is our main sponsor, our title sponsor of everything that we do here at Vortex. At eHunter. Wow, that was kind of interesting. But grateful for those guys, and actually be on the lookout. I was talking with the guys over there today, and got a new launch coming out here in the near future. So we'll try to put some stuff up on the website as well as on the podcast about that. But pretty cool stuff coming out here in the near future. So excited for that, and we also have some new videos that'll be coming out with some of their products for you guys as well. So also on the podcast for sponsors this week is Grim Reaper, and I'm not actually super familiar with them. I know they make some awesome products, but Seth, you've been a long time Grim Reaper user, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Clear back 2011 or 2012, I started shooting them. Never let me down. If I do my job, they do their job. Killed multiple animals with it, a couple deer, a pronghorn. Just does everything you can ask from a blade or a broadhead. They fly great. I've never, like say, I know everybody seems to have an opinion on mechanicals, but I've never had an issue. The last 2 years, I've actually been shooting their Carna 4, so it's a 4-blade mechanical. Really, really good performance out of them. So couldn't be more happy.
A 4-blade mechanical, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, that'd be a nasty beast when that thing hits an animal.
Yeah, yeah.
Man,
Yep,
that's awesome.
I saw them and I was like, man, that's gonna make a mess. So I've been shooting them like say this year and last year. I've just got to do my job and actually get something with them.
Yeah, yeah, no
So
joke. Well, I'm excited to use them, put them into my quiver, and um, you know, see if I can't get some animals down with them myself. But appreciate them sponsoring the podcast. Awesome company, awesome guys too. So we do want to shout out them, appreciate them, and them supporting eHunter and this podcast. So thank you guys, appreciate it.
yep, thanks guys.
So we're going to jump into it today, and what we kind of thought about sharing with you guys today, since we're getting close to the hunt starting. I think we're all getting pretty antsy for next month to come and those archery seasons to start. And so what we wanted to provide for you guys today, this week, is some tips and tricks around spot and stalk hunting. And actually, in Utah, it's not going to be much spot and stalk. You set water, and they're probably going to come in because it's so freaking dry in Utah right now. Um,
Scary.
I'm actually sitting in Colorado right now, and it rained pretty hard all day, and it's pretty much rained every single day, they said, for the last forever. So they just kind of rubbed that in a little bit. But
Just rude.
but spot and stalk is a big part of hunting in the West. You know, out east for you guys, I know that's a lot of tree stand hunting, and it's kind of hard to spot and stalk just because of the geography out there. But for Western hunting, spot and stalking is really a lot of how you do it. And so we'd like to share some tips and tricks with you guys. Maybe these things are things that you've used in the past, or maybe you're new to hunting, and it's not something that you have even thought about. So we want to share these tips with you guys and just kind of talk through this a little bit, because I personally spot and stalk is my favorite way to hunt. I mean, that's how I do most of my hunting. Is that how your hunting has been, Seth?
Yes, by and large, I don't have the patience. These Eastern guys have me on that. I don't have the patience to sit water very often. I have to find the animal and go get it.
Yeah. I don't mind sitting in water. Like I can do it, especially I'll sit back in a ground blind or something like that and read a book. And dude, I could sit there all day long as long as I got something good to drink and something good to eat and something to a book or something to entertain me. I played a lot of Candy Crush in a ground blind too. So I can do that, but I agree. Like I like to be out and going. And honestly, I've had more success spotting doing the spot and stock, and so with that success, hopefully, and Seth also has had a lot of success with it. So hopefully, some of the things that we share with you guys today will be helpful and something that will help you be more successful in the field as well. And so, Seth, I'm going to turn it over to you to kick us off and share some of the key points that you have for spot and stock.
Okay. Well, we'll start with the first part of spot and stock, and that's spotting the animal. Um, so typically, I grew up and we just drove around in a vehicle on a dirt road and glassed from the dirt road. We were not the best at finding good glassing locations and locating wildlife. But as I gotten older, I've learned what spots what to look for in a glassing spot. How much distance can I cover? Can I sit in this area and cover a lot of ground with my eyes? Saves walking. Saves the amount of time you're spending covering ground with your feet. Instead, you're covering it with your eyes, trying to locate something. The number one thing I do, and Taryn, you may do this as well. When I first come to an area, I'm going to glass. I glass everything close, with 50 yards and then out to maybe 250 or 300 because I don't want to have a deer or an elk or whatever I'm looking for notice me first and get away when there was an opportunity close. After I cover my areas close, I kind of pick large structures or landmarks, stuff that draws your eyes to them, cover all those areas. If I can't really pick anything up, then I really start picking the mountain apart. I slow down in my glassing, look at little draws, drainages, vegetation, growth, stuff that the animal may be using for cover or feed. If I know there's some water in the area, I kind of use that as a honing point. I'll stray from it, but I always come back as I'm glassing to see if something's snuck into the water source while I'm glassing. And glassing is a big part of it, and it's obviously the first part of spot and stock. So if you can't spot them, you can't stock them.
That's exactly it. And you guys have heard us talk a lot about it, of glassing. I mean, we've talked. I think you and I talked a lot about glassing on this podcast, don't you think? we, it's huge. I mean, it's honestly how we do a lot of what we do when it comes to hunting. And this is where I'm going to give the shout out again to Vortex Optics because I mean they're a staple in what I do in the spotting end of this. I use an array of different things, and I've talked about these in the past, but I'll talk about them again. I have the Razor 10 by 42 ultra high definition binoculars, and I like, everybody's gonna be like, oh, well, why not use the 18s or the 12s? And dude, any of those are great optics. I mean, the reason I use the 10s is I feel like I get a wider field of view, and the quality of those binoculars are so freaking good that I'm gonna pick out that animal out there somewhere if I really take the time to be patient and focus on what I'm looking at. So I use those, and then I also use the Razor HD spotting scope. Once I locate it with my binoculars, then I'll switch over to my spotting scope and really kind of dial in to figure out what I'm looking at. Usually with my binos, I know if it's a nice buck or a nice bull. But then I'll use the spotting scope to really look at the details. So yeah, I agree with you, Seth, that spotting part of it is kind of obviously where you start. But to be able to spot an animal, you still got to be patient. We talked about sitting in a blind or a tree stand and we don't have the patience for that. Well, glassing, you still have to have that patience. If you're one of those people that gets behind a set of binos, and especially if you don't use a tripod, gets behind a set of binos and just hurries and glasses over the hillside, you're going to miss so much. I can't tell you how much my hunting experience has changed since I got a tripod. I put my binos on the tripod, and I'll put it in one location, and I'll just sit there and look at that one area that field of view that I have on my tens for minutes before I move to it, move it over a little bit. And it's amazing because you'll pick out a hoof, or you'll pick out the tip of an antler, or something that you just normally wouldn't pick out. So be patient with it. Take the time to really glass. And then Seth, kind of to your point, yeah, I think that's how we all used to hunt. Was you drive around the truck, you drink Mountain Dew, and hopefully something jumps up, right?
Right. And to an extent, I mean, we definitely did that. But me and my cousin started to learn pretty early on, even in the truck. We would stop at a pullout or something, and we would actually take the time to look. Where a lot of guys would pull up, in front of us or behind us or whatever. Other hunters would pull up, throw their glasses up, be there for 35 seconds in the pullout, and take off.
Yep.
Like I can't count, even when we were hunting young bucks, just anything with horns growing up. Horns, see, that's just hillbilly talk. Antlers.
You hunt sheep, so it's all right.
Right. We would park, and we would actually take some time, and I can't tell you how many times we'd find a buck laying up under a cedar tree. You could just see his legs or something at 1st, and you start breaking it down, and you're like, what, that's a buck. And numerous times we'd shoot a buck, and there'd be guys driving up and down the dirt road right past us that parked in the same pull out, and they pull up like, how did you see that deer? I'm like, you just look. I mean, and don't actually, quote unquote look like actually break the mountain down. And it's kind of hard to put into words, but it's kind of like Taryn said, slow down, spend a lot of time in each position in your field of view. And to Taryn's point, I do something similar. I have my 10 by 50s that I glass normally with. And then if I see something I want more detail on, I pull out my 18s, my Vortex 18s, UHDs, and really look at the animal once I've located them with my 10 by 50s.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And another point, because and it's okay, to cruise around on your side by side or in your truck and get to a point and glass. And then, if you spend a good 30, 45 minutes there glassing and you don't see anything, haul butt to the next spot and look. But I also want to say that, it helps to get off the road. Find a spot. And I've in the areas that I hunt, I know of areas that I can park and I can hike not that far. You don't have to hike 20 miles to get to a spot, but you hike to the top of a hill or find those areas. Spend the time, whether it's when you're shed hunting or whatever you're doing. So get up where you can see a good field of view. I don't think there's enough that can be said about getting to a place a little bit off the road, up on top of a hill, where you can kind of get away from things and glass areas that aren't seen from the road. And like I said, in my areas that I hunt, I know those areas very well that I can get up, glass, and I like areas that I can get up to and glass for hours and not be able to cover the entire time, or the entire geography. Because like I said, I spend a lot of time in one specific spot looking around. But with the glass that we have these days, we have such an advantage, and we need to take advantage of that and not take it for granted, because the glass is so amazing. Use that glass to make yourself more successful as a hunter. And so get to where you need to get, spend the time, be patient, and you can, I promise, I promise you will find more animals if you're able to do that. Again, my hunting life has changed since using a tripod. And actually, a really quick tip for you guys, and I know this is silly, and actually I had a guy the other day ask me on the tripods, because I did a tripod review. A guy sent me a message and said, "Hey, what's a little hook on the bottom of a tripod for?" And so that's actually a counterweight for stabilization. So they make little weights that you can put on there. But one thing that I've done, and you guys can call me a redneck, you can call me whatever you want to call me. I made a little bag that I can fill with rocks. I made it out of Levi's, an old pair of Levi's, and a rope. And so when I'm glassing, I'll fill that bag full of rocks, hook it around that hook, and that thing, it locks that tripod to the ground. There's no shaking in my binos or my spotting scope when I'm looking through it. So just a little tidbit of information there. That hook is for a counterbalance weight, and I use it. You'll be surprised at how well it stabilizes your glass when you're looking through it. So um, the reason I got into doing that was because I've got a friend that's really into photography, and he uses it when he's doing photography for wildlife. And he says, "Oh, dude, it's a game changer for taking pictures." He's like, it took the quality of my pictures up 4 notches. So, anyways, cool little tidbit there for that. But spotting obviously is the beginning of the spot and stalk. Take the time, get out there, spend the time to really to spot the area. So then we'll jump into what happens, what you do next once you spot that. And I'll kind of jump into this, Seth, and I'll turn it back over to you to chat, or you can cut me off and tell me to shut up at any moment. But
You're good. Go ahead.
so it really, my answer to that question is really depends on what animal I'm hunting. So I'll use my two main animals that I hunt for examples. But if you're hunting sheep or you're hunting antelope or something different, your approach may be a little bit different. But so once I've spotted, I'm gonna start with an elk. So what I like to do when I see elk is I actually like to move. I really like to put the stalk on, and because the thing with elk is, especially if you're hunting them during the rut, they don't mind noise. Noise really doesn't bother them that much. It's smell and then seeing something move. And so if I see an elk that I want to go after, I'll get moving pretty quickly to get down to be on the right side of the wind of that elk and to get in front of that elk if he's moving. So I really don't spend a lot of time just sitting there watching what he's doing. And Seth, you can tell me your thoughts on it, but I also want to jump into if I'm hunting mule deer, it's a completely different approach for me. So if I'm hunting mule deer, which out here in the West we usually hunt mule deer late summer, what I will do is I won't do a thing. I'll just sit there and glass, and I won't take my eyes off of him. I get kind of crazy because I feel like if I take my eyes off of him, I'm going to lose him. I'm like really suspicious or superstitious about that. And so I'll just sit there and keep my eyes on him. And what I try to do with mule deer is stay on that mule deer buck until he lays down, beds down for the day. That's how I've been the most successful with mule deer. Because the thing about mule deer is if they hear any kind of noise, if they smell you, see you, anything, they're gone, and they are gone. And so I like to let them get bedded down. Then I can really spend the time while I'm watching him to see what the wind's doing, so I know which side of the wind to get on, or which side of the animal to get on, so I'm not, so the wind, I don't have the wind against me. And so that's really my approach for mule deer. Seth, is yours similar to those with those two animals?
Yeah, so especially, I'll just go into both of those quick. Elk, 100% agree. When we hunt elk, typically you're hunting them in the rut or near the rut. Go, because like you say, they're okay with noise. They are loud by nature that time of year. They're cracking, they're breaking stuff. A little bit of noise is not going to freak them out. Go get them. Mule deer, I will say, depending on the geography, yes, your way is by far the most successful. If you are in an area where you can see that buck bed and he's not going into a jungle, like even if, I guess it all depends on the elevation of where he's bedding. If he's bedding on the exact same elevation that you are sitting on watching in thick cover, it's very hard to kill them when they're bedded because you can't see where they are exactly bedded.
Good point.
But yes, if they're in the big open country, 100% I've gotten on a ton of deer that way. You watch them until they bed, you get the wind right, and you go get them once they're bedded. Another thing you want to be aware of a lot of the time, though, with mule deer is run it in your head how long it's going to take you to get over there. Because so many times I've seen a nice deer or a buck bed down in the shade. It takes you 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever, to get to where he is. And the sun has changed enough, he gets up and moves.
Yep.
If you're in mid stock and you're 300 yards away, he stands up and sees you, game over.
Yeah.
So you'll want to really kind of run that through your mind and see how to do it. But yeah, I've had issues where I have found my best bucks lately on the unit I hunt here in Utah is on very similar planed elevation, and they're bedding in cedars,
Hmm.
and you cannot see where they go to bed. So I've had to get really creative and try to cut them off going
Those
where they're going to.
those buggers too. I swear, every time I'm stalking a mule deer, they always have the does around like little satellites.
Yeah.
And I swear, those things. If anybody knows what like when a doe blows, you know what I'm talking about, Seth?
No, yes, very
Oh
much.
man, there is nothing that pisses you off more than a freaking doe that you're sneaking in on this buck, and he's got does around him, and she blows, and as soon as she blows, the whole group is gone, and they're gone in a freaking hurry.
Goes. Yep. Yep.
Oh,
See, I
pisses me
had
off.
a young hunter, my wife's cousin. We went out bow hunting, and he had bow hunted very little. But I knew the area kind of my section of the unit. He hunted a different section. I knew it pretty well, and I'm like, dude, we can see a lot of deer bed over here, and
Hmm.
we'll get you on one. So I took him over, and we spotted so many nice bucks, so many shooters, just whatever for whatever reason they were everywhere that morning.
Hmm.
And four of the five stocks were blown when we were about 250 to 300 yards from them by does.
Oh, makes you freaking crazy.
The fourth stock afterwards, we're walking back to the truck, and he goes, "Bow hunting effing sucks." And I was like, I'm like, dude, this is just it. I'm like, you get to see them, but it's hard to kill them.
Somebody should put that on a shirt.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, I think they already did.
I wonder who did. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, we got to the fifth buck we seen was a small buck, um, and it was with a doe and a fawn, and they had bedded under a cedar. And he's like, "How would you get on him?" So I told him what I would do, and he's like, "Come with me." I'm like, "Dude, two guys being quiet enough to get on a deer is pretty hard." And he's like, "That's fine, just come with me." I was like, "All right." So we did it, and we snuck up to him, and I had the rangefinder, and he had his bow and whatnot, and we got to the tree, or we had the tree as a marker, and we got to about 25 yards, and we could see the doe and the fawn's bodies underneath the tree, but we couldn't see the buck. And I was like, dude, he's right here. Get ready, because I'm like, he's gonna come out of there. And he was young, but he jumped up, took two jumps and stopped, and I rangefinded him, and it was 40 yards. I was like, he's 40, and he shot and smoked him. But
Nice.
I was like, does it suck now? And he was like, that was pretty cool. I'm like, yeah, but it does
Exactly.
suck to have big bucks laying there and you can't get to them because of all the does.
You brought up a very good point, and that is, there's a lot of people that hunt with a cameraman with them these days. We
Mm-hmm.
all want to be the big time hunter that gets a
Right.
YouTube hit, and all of a sudden everybody knows us kind of a thing. But um, so trying to stalk when you have a second person with you, whether that's a cameraman, whether it's your friend like your situation, or
Right.
or whatever, man, that's a game changer. Like actually I have only been successful one time where there's two of us that hiked in there, and it was on an elk. It wasn't even on a mule deer. So
Yeah.
it's that's
Same thing
that's
with
tough.
me. Yep. I've had one successful dual stock, and that was that buck. We both went in and snuck in on him, and he was young. Like I say, it was not a great big buck or anything, but
Yeah,
yeah, usually if it's a big buck, you got to go solo and
you
hope you
do.
get lucky and no does are in the road. And
With the camera equipment that we have these days, it's pretty easy for the cameraman to stay back though and video from afar. And actually, I like the shots better because then you have the hunter in the picture, and I think it
right.
actually looks pretty dang cool. But hey, going back to the elk, I want to share a quick story, and I may have shared this with you guys in the past as well, so forgive me if I have. But you know, don't waste time with elk. We already talked about that because they will. I mean, they're gonna move pretty quickly. Even if they're feeding, they move pretty quickly, and they'll move a long ways. So waiting for them to bed, you can do it. You can sit there and wait for them to bed if you got a big open space. But I've had times, and I'll share one experience where we were watching some elk move down a draw, and this is where my duel spot and stalk where there's me and my brother. But we saw these elk moving down this draw, and the wind. It was still early. It was early in the morning, and the wind was kind of coming at their back, coming down the draw. And so we could tell that from spotting, and so we hauled butt down a different draw where they couldn't see us to the bottom, and then hop over to the draw that they were on to get ahead of them. And we made all sorts of noise. I remember rocks rolling down the hill. I remember my brother slipping and falling, and me wanting to kick him in the butt for doing that. But we were making a ton of noise coming down that mountain, but it didn't phase those animals. My dad stayed up at the truck, and we asked him after we had got the elk down. We said, "Did they even pay attention to us running down that mountain? Did they like look up at us or anything like that?" And he's like, "Dude, they didn't even flinch. Like they didn't even listen to you guys at all." He's like, "It's like they didn't even hear you. They had to have heard us. I mean, elk have an unbelievable um, sense
Yeah.
of hearing, but don't waste time with elk. Get in on them. Get close." And then also another thing that I wanted to talk about is when you get close, kind of going back to what we talked about with spotting, is be patient. Be extremely patient as you do get close, because if you are close within that animal, um, let that situation come to you. Don't try to force it. Even on elk, I know I just said haul butt to get to the elk, but once he gets close, don't force the issue. Wait for that good opportune moment where you'll have a good shot at him. I'm also going to throw out a shout out to a friend of ours and a former sponsor on the podcast, which is Sneak Tech Boots. If you guys have ever used those boots, they're wonderful because you can really get in close without the animal hearing you, and you don't have to step on all these burrs and crap like that in your socks. So it's a whole lot better. So they just strap onto your boot, and you can really kind of get in there close without making a sound. But going back to it, especially when you have those on, just be very patient. Move slowly when you get in there close, and let that situation come to you. If it doesn't, don't. Yes, bow hunting sucks, and you're gonna be pissed, but don't let it ruin your hunt. Don't let it ruin your day. I mean, I can't tell you how many ruined spot and stalks I've had to the number of successful spot and stalks I've had. It's probably 100 to 1. Sadly, maybe not quite that bad, but it's pretty crazy what the percentages would be. So just be patient, and then don't get upset if it doesn't work out. I look at every single spot and stock that doesn't work out as a learning opportunity, and I learn from each and every single one of them. I would consider myself a seasoned hunter now, and I still learn something on every single spot and stock. And we didn't talk about other animals, but you'll find that other animals are a completely different experience. You have to approach those situations differently, and we don't have enough time to go through every single one of them. But just enjoy the process and learn from each and every one of them. Wouldn't you agree, Seth?
Oh, yeah, 100%. The more you do it, the more you're going to learn, the more you're going to realize there's no way I'm going to make this stock work. But at the same time, there's those times where sometimes you've just got to do it. So I'll share a really quick one. So my dad had a limited entry archery deer tag in 2016. He was out there one of the days by himself. He told me that this one buck we had been chasing was bedded in these rocks, and he had gotten to about 150 yards, and the buck heard him or something and got up and took off. So that next day I went out to help him, and that buck went and bedded in the exact same spot. And I'm like, go get him. I'm like,
Yeah.
go get him. And he's like, no, he spooked last time. He'll see me, he'll hear me, something. He's gonna spook again. And I was like, dude, you can get him. I'm like, I promise. And I was telling him, go up the draw, make a little J hook, and come right over that rock, and he'll be right there. And no matter how much talking I did, my old man would not do it. He's like, he's not going to do it. And I says, okay, well, what do you want to do? And don't do this, because in all my times, I've never had it work. It might work, but I've never had it work. He goes, I'm going to go up the canyon that he escaped, and I'm going to sit on his escape route. You're just going to walk over there, kind of sneaky, but kind of normal, and just get him up and see if he'll go up that same escape route. I've never had this work. Someone might have. I've never had this work. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I was being sneaky, but I wasn't like crazy panicked about noise or quietness or anything. I did exactly what I told my dad to do. Go up the draw, J hook around, come over this rock, and he'll be right there. And sure enough, I did that. The buck stood up. I pretended to draw back 3 or 4 different times, pretended to settle the pin on him, do all this stuff, and he just sat there and looked at me. And then he turned and ran to a completely different escape route than where my old man was at.
Oh my
So
gosh.
if my old man would have just done it, I range finded, like I had time to range find the buck. He was 41 yards away. Uh,
Wow.
I'm like, dude, if I had a tag, he'd have been dead.
Yeah. Yep. That's
And
easy. 40-yard
it,
shot.
but it never fails either, because if I'd have had the tag, I know that buck would have never gave me that chance.
Yeah, that's true. That's usually how it works out.
It's just karma or something. But yeah,
Yep.
I snuck right up on him, no problems. Um, but yeah, I've never had any success with trying to jump them and hit their ambush point
No.
or their escape route. Not to say it doesn't happen. If they had to cover like a huge, like if you're in a real open area and you sat at the next edge, like the next set of trees, that might work. You know, if he spook him out of one and he runs 300 or 400 yards to the next set of Quakies or something,
Hmm.
and you're sitting in the edge of the Quakies, you might be able to catch him. But he's up, he's hyper alert. It's gonna be a little bit harder to do.
See, I don't even like doing that with a gun anymore. That whole spooking them up and trying
Right.
to catch them as they get out of there. I used to. I used to try to do that, and I walked many, many miles and scared them up and then shot a, and I'd shot them. But man,
Right.
if you truly do spot and stalk the way it's supposed to be done, it's such a better way to hunt. It gives you, better opportunities, I should say, to make good shots, make good ethical shots. It also lets you know really what you're going after too, because can't tell you how many times I've spotted decent bucks and be like, yeah, maybe not yet. We'll wait. If I would have been spooking them and or jumping them up and shooting them, I would have shot. And they're like, oh well, here's what I've got here. So I think spot and stalk, if you do it the way it should be done, is a much better way to hunt animals. And I think if you follow these tips and tricks that we talked about today, you'll find yourself quite a bit more successful. But in the end, be patient, have fun, learn from every encounter that you have. I mean, animals are animals. They're so different. They're just like human beings. All of us are different. All of us react to situations differently. Animals are the same way. They also learn. If you have an old buck, he's going to behave differently than a young buck, like exactly what Seth just was talking about. So, just enjoy the process, enjoy each situation. So, Seth, anything else you want to add to this?
I think we gave him a pretty good feel for some tactics to use and stuff like that.
Cool. What's going on at eHunter? Anything new and
Uh,
exciting?
a ton of new news coming out every day, man, to keep people up to date. I've got new recipes out there. If you guys like sweet pork tacos, I did one on venison sweet pork. It's one of my favorite ways to cook it. I've got, like I say, we've got a couple different cartridge articles that have come out. One, good deer rifle cartridge, good pronghorn cartridges and stuff like that. So there's a lot on there.
Yeah.
Like I
Got a
say, I
lot.
do my best to keep people in the know.
Yeah. Got a lot going on social media, guys. Check us out there. Be posting frequently. Some cool stuff. Try to share stuff. If you guys tag us in your Instagram posts, we'll try to share it on our stories. A lot of people ask what that's all about. Just trying to share everybody's content. Just trying to create a community with everybody and have fun with it. So, yeah, tag us in your posts on Instagram. We'd love to see what you guys are doing. We also just started a TikTok page. Seth is going to become a master of TikTok, and
Yeah. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm probably going to use it more as like a quick news type thing to say, hey, these are some of the articles we're looking at today or tomorrow or whatever. Check them out, stuff like that. I'll find some funny hunting stuff. We'll put it on there.
yeah, and I'll be putting podcast stuff up on there and merchandise, apparel, things like that. We'll put that kind of stuff up on there. But it's a fun application. I don't know if there's many of you guys out there that use TikTok. It's something that I kind of poo-pooed for a long time. I finally got it recently, and it's become my favorite social media platform. I freaking laugh my guts off every time I hop on there. So if you're on TikTok, jump on, follow us. Let us know what you guys like on there, and let us know the pages that you guys like to follow, and also let us know what you want on there from us. So make sure that you guys are subscribed to the podcast, and please, guys, if you wouldn't mind, share it with a friend, a family member, anybody that's into hunting, wants to get into hunting. We want to build this community. We want to be the ultimate resource for you guys. Also, real quick, Seth, I want to give a shout out to a buddy of mine. This guy listens to every podcast that we do, so I know that he's listening to this podcast. But Tyler Stout, he's a good friend of mine, lives in the same hometown as I live in now, and cool guy. But I just want to tell him thank you for supporting us at eHunter. Like I said, he listens to every podcast. He reads all of our articles. He's just a cool dude, deserves a shout out. So we appreciate him, and we appreciate all of you guys that support us here at eHunter. But please share the podcast around. And let us know if there's anything that you guys want on here, anything that you want to share with us. So, again, appreciate you guys.
Oh, sorry. If you guys have a story or something you want to talk to us about, or if you want us to share it on a podcast or something like that, let us know that way too. We're more than happy to share it on a hunting story podcast or something like that. So.
Yeah, and if you have expertise in a certain area and want to jump on and say, hey, I really know this topic really well, and I feel like it could be a resource for other people, I'd love to have you on as a guest. So just let us know what's going on, and we could make some things work out like that. So anyways, appreciate you guys. Thank you again to Vortex and Grim Reaper. Appreciate the support and sponsorship of the podcast, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you. See ya.